Since I clearly, thank you, Quinn. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Ulmer, Chair of the Board of Accountancy Pipeline Committee. I am calling this public meeting to order. Today is Thursday, August 7th, 2025, and the time is 3:01 p.m. This meeting is being held both in person and via Zoom video and is being recorded. Please be sure to mute your mic through Zoom. When you want to speak, please use the raise your hand or use your hand feature if participating by Zoom, and unmute when called upon and mute yourself when done speaking. Committee members, the board liaison, and support staff can ask to speak at any time. For any members of the public observing this meeting in person or on Zoom, please use the public comment opportunity the committee will extend at each meeting unless specifically called upon. Please do not use the chat room for any discussions. Should any technical issues arise, we will pause the meeting until they are resolved. I will now take roll call of members and guests, starting with those who are on the committee. Mary, we'll start with you.
You're muted, Mary.
Mary Savage. I am on Zoom. Happy to be here.
Scott?
Scott Wright, attending via Zoom.
Claire?
Claire Costin, present via Zoom.
Cynthia?
Cynthia Killingsworth, present via Zoom.
I'm Elizabeth Ulmer, present via Zoom. We have staff and Melissa, I'm not sure what I call you. Council, there we go. Melissa?
Cunningham from the Department of Justice. Yes, on Zoom.
Great. Andrew?
Andrew Arlo, present in office and Zoom.
Quinn?
Christopher Dalvig, present on Zoom.
I apologize. I was supposed to say board staff.
Quinn Stoddard, board staff.
And as our guest, we have Dave Adams. Dave?
Dave Adams, present via Zoom.
All right. I think I got everybody here, right? Okay. All right. So before we go any further, we'd like a review and adoption of agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Madam
what have I
Chair?
messed up?
Madam Chair, may I make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
Yes, you may. Thank you.
I so move.
And do I have a second? Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Madam Chair, is there any discussion?
All right. Now am I safe? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So I think for just a moment, we are going to go ahead. Hang on one second here. I want to make sure I need a third screen, which I do not have here today. So I'm going to quick pull things over to make sure I'm good. I'm not missing anything. So our primary purpose today is to have a work session. And the point is to go through the draft contract that Melissa has prepared for us for the grant of the funds from the Board of Accountancy to the Oregon Society of CPAs Educational Foundation. So I know we have Chris and Dave here. I'm going to give you an opportunity if there's anything that you'd like to share during this public comment period before we jump into the document. Maybe you can also share what your roles are related to the OSCPA Foundation. Chris, you want to go first since you've attended, and then we'll kick it to Dave real quick.
I am a past president and current member of the OSCPA Education Foundation.
And I am Dave Adams, I'm the current president of the OSCPA Education Foundation, and don't have any initial comments.
Okay. Melissa, can you maybe, before we actually jump into the document, just give us kind of an overview? I've got the document here. I'm going to share it. I don't know to what extent others have had an opportunity to go through it in detail. I've gone through it and left a lot of notes of questions of things that I want to highlight, but I think it would be great if you could give us a little background to get started.
Certainly. Obviously, this is kind of a new document. This is not, many agencies have big grant programs and they have documents that they've used for years. So because this is a new program, I tried to put this together in a way that was most similar, drawing from the lots of grants agreements that we look at in our section here at the Department of Justice. And so I can sort of talk about it a little bit generally. At the beginning, there's an introduction about the parties, this thing called recitals, which is kind of really where you talk about the purpose. And then what follows that in the draft document is mostly what we would call sort of standard terms and conditions. They are pretty standard, most of them in many of the grants that we review for agencies and that agencies use. Obviously we can go through these, and if anybody has questions about, what is the provision or what is it for, we can certainly talk about that. Nothing in here is written in stone, except there's a few things that an agreement has to have really for us to be able to approve it for legal sufficiency, which is another step that happens kind of later once you get everything that you want in there set. Then the agreement, anything over $250,000 value has to be reviewed for legal sufficiency by the Department of Justice. But hopefully that will be a very easy process since I'm the one who drafted it. And then at the end, there's a couple of exhibits. One is the primary one, and is really the crucial one, is Exhibit A, which is also in a procurement contract you could call it the statement of work. It's really what is going to be required of the grantee. And so that also, there's a number of things to fill in and decisions to be made about what you want in there. I also included a couple of 3 attachments that are potential templates for reporting and a letter of intent for the scholarship awardees about their intent to become, pursuing licensure, basically. And then Exhibit B is an insurance requirement. And I talked about this in the agreement itself. That is a decision for you all to make, whether you want to require insurance or not. I can tell you that the Department of Administrative Services very, very much encourages it. And it may be something that Martin or somebody from the board staff, could talk to the Department of Administrative Services about. They have what they call a risk calculator that helps figure out like what insurance or how much and that sort of thing. Because insurance is not my area of expertise. They are really sort of the experts on that. So.
Madam Chair.
Sorry, I was muted. Go ahead, Scott.
So Melise, question for you. You said you had Exhibit B, but I see that as Exhibit C.
I know. Yes,
So
it is.
Are we missing a B and B is really C?
Yes.
Okay.
There's I went through it again. There's a few typos. It's a draft. So obviously, every time I go through it, and before we finalize it, we'll make sure all those are correct and all the internal references too. Yes, there's only 2 exhibits.
Okay, I think with that, if there's no more comments or questions, I'll go ahead and share the document and we can start working through it. If you have notes on your copy of the document, it's helpful if you can have those in front of you, and then we'll just literally go page by page. I think we get a little further down the document, we'll have some more robust discussion. But right now, it's just making sure that there's been no miscommunications in here. And I think there's probably some clarification questions. So can you all see the agreement? I'll make it a little larger for you as well. Can everybody see that okay? You can just give me a nod. Okay, terrific. All right. So the yellow highlights in here are items that I believe are just placeholders from Melise, that those need to be dropped in. So most of that is pretty clear. I assume the recipient grant manager is the OSCPA executive director? Or is this somebody, I don't know what Sherry's, because this is a foundation, it's actually the foundation, not the OSCPA. So this was something I just wanted to bring to your attention, Melise. I believe that Sherry is a standing non-voting member of the foundation. Do either Chris or Dave, do you remember if that's the case? I believe she is. Because since the OSCPA Foundation board changes on a regular basis, she would be the most permanent member. Scott, do you have some insight into this?
No, but I was going to raise a question on naming Martin specifically. I mean, I have no knowledge that he might change, but do we just want to say executive director?
Melise, I'm
Yeah,
fine with.
I just dropped that in because, you know, that's essentially a placeholder too. You all can designate it whoever you like.
I think it's easier to just say the executive director.
Right. I was concerned if there were changes that somehow then delay something where we got to amend the contract of name a specific person.
Yeah. And I would say there is a provision in here that it can be changed through just notice to the other party. So you can put a specific person and then it can change later. And all you need to do is, you know, both parties would just say, hey, our grant manager contact changed. It's now this person. So that it would not require amending the agreement.
I paused on that one as well, Scott. My inclination would just be to say executive director of the Board of Accountancy. So the issue with the recipient grant manager, that's one that I think I don't understand how the legality of that works with the foundation and the OSCPA because they are separate legal entities. So that's one, Melise, for you to sort out, I think, from a legal perspective.
I'm not sure what you mean.
So the OSC, Scott?
Well, I was going to say, if Sherry's going to join us at 4 o'clock, would she be a resource then to bounce this off of?
Because I think this is whoever the grantee is, the foundation, they are the ones that designate this person, and they can designate whoever they would like.
Okay.
This is just a contact person.
Got it. Then my inclination would be to say, since we know that the chair rotates every year at the Ed Foundation, that it should be the OSCPA executive director, but we can just make a point to verify with Sherry. All right, moving on. Melise, was there a reason to leave that one blank? I mean, it's $1 million that's been approved by the legislature.
Oh, you mean on section 4 here?
Yes.
Yes, but this is a decision for the Board of Accountancy to decide how much, you know, the maximum amount is that you want to give to a particular grantee. That's what this is.
Okay, that's fine. As long as it's not something we need to be dealing with.
Well, yeah, right. It's just whatever the amount is, the total amount.
My understanding is, I think this is, am I missing something from the rest of the board? And I think this is just $1 million.
Yeah, and I'm happy to fill that in if that's the number
Yes.
you use.
That's, I believe, the number in all the legislation, so I don't know that we have a choice. I mean, we can make it 2. I'm good with that, but
Well, I mean, my point was you have authority to do a certain amount. You don't have to give it all to one grantee. So
the intent is, yeah, the intent is the entire amount to one grantee.
okay.
Okay. I'm just going to keep moving. Raise your hand. We're a small group today, so raise your hand if there's something else you want to jump in on. This reminded me why I did not go to law school.
One of the things, actually, if you can go back, Elizabeth, to section 5, I think, and I think it's apparent in Exhibit A. There are some questions and things for you to think about here, which is, how do you want to disperse funds?
I've got a bunch of that down
Yeah.
below.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but it's also here. So
Got it.
So thinking about, how do you want to disperse this? There are different ways that grants can be dispersed. They can be dispersed all in one lump sum. They can be dispersed periodically, quarterly, or they can be dispersed on a reimbursement basis. So those are your options. And so thinking about that, so whatever you decide, and maybe we discuss it in the exhibit, but however you decide to do that, this provision here, particularly in section 5.1.3, may need some tweaking.
Madam Chair.
Scott? Yes.
So for point of clarification, this is the disbursement from the Board of Accountancy's account to the Educational Foundation, not necessarily from the foundation to the individual recipients.
Exactly.
Okay.
My comments were all on the recipients. I wasn't thinking about it from the disbursement to the Ed Foundation until you just explained it, Melise.
Yeah.
Given that the Ed Foundation has an investment process already for Ed Foundation funds, is there any reason that the committee can think of, or Melise, that you could suggest where we might want to delay disbursement?
Madam Chair, I guess I'd also like to solicit some input from the foundation as to how quickly they could absorb money. We don't want to drink from the fire hose, have them drinking from the fire hose if $1 million is too much all up front. So I think there's some feedback from the Educational Foundation side that'd be important too.
Okay. I don't know why it's acting funny, but it is. Chris?
I don't see, if it were dispersed all in one amount, I don't see there being an issue with that. We have, like you had mentioned, we have that vehicle, some investment accounts, and there's the possibility of that amount growing and being able to give more scholarships out that way as well.
Right. That was sort of my thinking on this, but I think that's a good point. I mean, this is a huge scale up of dollars. Does the Ed Foundation and the investment committee feel comfortable with that? I think that's a great point. Okay, great.
Yeah, also, Elizabeth, you could stop there with the confidential information. I put this provision in, like I said, I put this grant agreement together from a number of different, kind of places. And one of the places I used is there's, some other state agencies that have not exactly the same kind of scholarship program, but some similarities. And this is one of the provisions that those have, because the grantee is going to be collecting potentially confidential information. So I put this in here, and so I just wanted to explain that too.
Yeah, and I've served on that Ed Foundation I served on for quite some time, but it's also been I don't know, 5 years maybe, I think pre-pandemic before I was on it. And I don't recall, Chris and Dave, maybe you can update us. Is there any kind of confidentiality things? I just remember a conflict of interest statement being having to be signed as a board member. I don't recall anything about confidential information. In hindsight, perhaps if there wasn't, there should be. This is FERPA protected information. I assume it's very similar. So, I mean, I sort of have a practice about never saying students' names. You never know where you go with things.
Yeah, and just a quick response to that. I think our focus has been on student names and I guess performance or GPA. We've never gone into any personal identifying information beyond the name. And so this is a little bit of a new area. And I think that's accurate that we've focused primarily on conflict of interest, not confidentiality.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys can all see the note I just put in there. I think that if this is in the contract, that's just something we want Sherry to be aware of. I don't think this is a bad idea. And, we've had a lot of discussion over the years about that committee. And, there are always sort of sticky things about this is my intern. This is, I'm sure you guys recall what I'm talking about. So it just seems like this might be prudent to raise with Sherry.
And then there are a couple of highlighted things sort of at the bottom of this section 7 too.
Okay.
Think about, or comments that I put in.
Yeah. There we go. I am not aware of subcontractors. Chris and David, I don't think there's anything that you've ever used on there.
Okay. Well, if that's, oh, go ahead.
If I can, is there any harm with leaving it in there in case somewhere down the road, for whatever weird reason, the subcontractor is used?
Melise?
Well, again, it's kind of a business decision for you all. There's not a legal reason one way or another, but as my comment said, if you want to allow subcontractors, then you should have this requirement in here too, that they also maintain confidentiality.
I guess I look at it, no harm, no foul, keeping it there. It's from the state's perspective, which is what I am representing as a member of the committee from the Board of Accountancy. I don't see how that hurts, and it can only help the state. If there are some issues with the OSCPA Foundation, I'm happy to hear it, but it's probably unnecessary, but it doesn't hurt to have it there.
And I can tell you there are provisions in other part of the agreement that says if the recipient, the grantee, is going to use a subcontractor, they must get the board's permission, sign off, consent. So you would know about it.
Thank you.
I think this is something to check with Sherry on too. I mean, I agree, no harm, no foul if it's there, but I can't envision when it would be used. Okay.
And then the background check one.
Yeah.
And this is, again, not a legal requirement that you do this. It was in another agreement related to scholarships, but it may not be necessary. But again, it's a business decision for you all.
I mean, basically what that's asking is a criminal background check on all of the members of the Ed Foundation Board. What are thoughts from you folks on that?
I think that's a little overkill, don't you think?
Well, I guess, again, I totally agree. But speaking from the state's perspective, it's good protection there. But yes, it's imposing a pretty significant responsibility on the OSCPA and the foundation. So I would understand if there's some pushback. But again, from protection from the state's perspective, it makes sense. But is that enough to impose that requirement on the recipient? I don't know.
I was just thinking from the perspective of being a state employee as an instructor. I've never had a background check. And I think as instructors, we manage a lot more vulnerable information. Maybe it should be an idea, but
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think this is definitely something that would be how significant, I'm not sure, but a significant undertaking that we've never even contemplated at the foundation level. And I'd turn back to Melissa, but I think if the OSCPA is responsible for its actions, then it's taking responsibility for anything that its volunteers as board members do. This seems like an onerous requirement.
Yeah, and again, it's totally up to the committee, whether we can certainly take that out or leave it in.
Take it out. Can we get a straw poll thumbs up or thumbs down? Okay, Claire, not seeing you. So probably still mopping up her broken refrigerator. That's no fun.
So that's a take it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, section 8. So I guess my question on insurance, I mean, clearly the Ed Foundation must have some kind of insurance. I'm guessing maybe cyber, I don't know. But I think this is a Sherry question that we need to understand what kind of existing insurance they have. And then taking this from a state perspective, understanding whether we think that's adequate. I guess I'm trying to decide too what they're insuring against besides maybe cyber breaches.
Exactly. That was, I mean, because there's no physical activity, no physical properties or anything else. But I hadn't even thought of the cyber piece, but yeah, but it is a bigger question. What sort of insurance might even are we thinking about?
Yeah. Okay.
And that's one of the reasons I would recommend that maybe someone from the board staff talk to DAS about what they think is appropriate also.
I can relay that to Martin when I speak to him next.
Great. I'm just going to leave all the notes in the document, and then we will forward it. Okay. I'll send this one to Martin directly.
Thank you.
Section 10. Anything? Dispute resolution. All right, we're moving along. Section 14, this was just a typo that I fixed on here. 15, 16, all the questions come down later. Again, unless anybody had something when they went through it.
And Elizabeth, if I could also, I should say this and make this clear too. So I want to be clear that because we have folks from the foundation here, that I represent the board and the board's committee. And this is a legal document that, you know, we have drafted and obviously will be presented to the foundation as the grantee. And I do not represent them and cannot give them legal advice about what this document says or the effects of it. So I just want to be really clear about that.
The Ed Foundation needs their own attorney to review
Right.
this. Okay. All right. So now we're getting to the meat of this, which is the details, not just the legalese that we need. So one thing that jumped out at me, and this is really, Elise, for you, is there was nothing in here in either part 1 or part 2 about economically disadvantaged students, that was part of the goal here. So either economically disadvantaged students, something around those lines, maybe reducing the economic burden of education for students who otherwise could not afford it. I don't know what kind of language, but was there a reason that was left out? Because that was throughout our documentation.
Yeah, and it does say that, you know, the requirement is the scholarships be based on student need down in the scholarship requirements. But if you want to put more something about, I basically just wrote this
Yeah.
out of my head. And so if there's more language that you would like to put in the background and purpose, in the goals and objectives and things like that about what is the goal or the you know, the need, absolutely we can put that in.
What does the rest of the committee think regarding this?
I would say fine, but I don't want to have it dialed down so deep that we somehow then get to a stage where we can't give away the money. We just don't have enough applicants.
Sadly, I don't think that's going to be a problem. Cynthia?
It does seem like that would be important in the purpose. And also, is there a reason why we're not saying provide grants to the Oregon Society of CPAs versus to nonprofit organizations? I just wonder if there might be some questions about why other nonprofits weren't included in this.
That language is based on the language in the statute and the rule. So basically, I just kind of copied that because what the law says is you can provide these to nonprofit organizations. But it's, you know, obviously this agreement, once it's, you know, has all the party information filled in and is signed by a particular grantee, then it's about that grantee. But if you want to make, you know, more specific reference in here to the specific grantee, that's fine also. But this is basically, I just kind of paraphrased what's in the law.
Well, also this is titled the project description, not the contract description. So I think nonprofit in that context is probably most appropriate, describing what the project is.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is very broad, Melise, right? And then we get narrower and narrower. Okay.
That was kind of the idea, yeah.
Okay. So what are thoughts on what I just edited there? Support I don't know why I wrote academically. Support, that would be a problem. Economically disadvantaged. And there's other terms we could use. Is Claire still here? Claire, I don't know if you can hear us. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? I know you definitely have some deeper expertise in some of this with the language.
Yeah, no, I think that economically disadvantaged is I think it's appropriate to use that, and that's the purpose of the scholarship, is to help folks who can't afford to come to school otherwise, right? So I'm comfortable with that. Basically, we're trying to get at where this is for students who have need, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that economically disadvantaged works.
Yeah, and then we operationalize it later.
Yes.
My comment would be is by specifically saying that is to provide funding and support to economic disadvantaged students. we are limiting who we can give this to. We maybe with a focus on, but not to the exclusion of other folks that would not necessarily be defined as economically disadvantaged. Whatever the language would be for that. This seems to be we want it focused, yes, but it is, again, I don't want to get to a stage where, and I've heard it said that the foundation struggles at times to give away all the money, and especially if in the first couple of years, we may not have enough people applying because they don't even know the thing exists.
Well, I think that's, Scott, your point is very well taken. Dave, I hope you've been on the foundation board for a while, but I understand from my colleague Cass Hauserman that this challenge persists. And I am really hopeful. Again, this is not within this document, but there needs to be something in the process between the universities and the foundation and marketing efforts to get more students to apply, because it's really, really challenging.
Yeah, I think that's true. Whoops. Yeah, I think that's true. And I think, our current scholarship process is very focused on academic achievement, not economic disadvantage. And so this is reaching a very different population of students.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, the intent.
Yes, that was absolutely the intent. Mary?
I agree with both Scott and David that I think that economically disadvantaged is too narrow, because there are a lot of students that may not be economically, but they also may not be in the very top tier, maybe the next tier down, that would really benefit, but aren't as financially challenged as some others. So I think we need to be very careful and make that broad enough. So
Can
it
you all see
incorporates both?
Yeah, before we kind of dial too deep into the language, before the meeting, I pulled up the spreadsheet that Scott had helped us prepare after I got the background of really how many students we think might be eligible. And I can tell you our enrollments have been going up. And I understand everybody's enrollments have been going up. So these are now a little bit old. But if you look at this, we said let's just figure out how many students are Pell Grant eligible, which ignores the Oregon Opportunity Grants. We just pulled Pell Grant data. And so we're looking at estimated eligibility of 513 students, and then just said, well, how many of these do we think, I don't even know what those numbers, where did we come up with those numbers? Bad spreadsheet form for me that I didn't put a percentage and an assumption.
Like 15% plus or minus.
Yeah, I think that's what we had talked about. I know we talked about it. But so I think I'm not too concerned about eligibility here.
Well, I guess as a question and I don't understand it for sure, but Pell Grant eligibility, would that necessarily encompass everybody that's economically disadvantaged and vice versa?
We have to have
No, I realize it, but we're using the term economic disadvantaged, and over here we're using Pell Grant eligibility. Are they synonymous, or are there some fringe areas that are different?
Economically disadvantaged is a broader category than Pell Grant.
So there would be more people economically disadvantaged than Pell Grant eligible. So with that definition, we're focusing, we can encompass the full Pell Grant eligibility.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
And when you get down there, it does say, or some other criteria. So this does give you the option, give the Ed Foundation the option to define it. I mean, a year from now, Pell Grants may not be there. Let's just call it. We don't know what's happening. There's been so many changes in programs affecting students.
Do we need to put that same language in this area, say economically disadvantaged and other criteria, and that covers all bases?
Oh, you mean, should we add that?
Yeah.
I don't know what else we're doing besides economically. I just don't know what you would say, because I feel like economically disadvantaged is quite all encompassing for the group that we've been talking about. And we've simply chosen to operationalize that with an objective third party, two objective third party measures as suggestions. So that's Pell Grant and Oregon Opportunity Grant. Elise?
Well, and I would say, you know, you have other places. I mean, obviously the statute and your rules require that it be needs-based. And right, you've said either under the Pell Grant standards or the Oregon Opportunity Grant or similar standard. So I think the sort of these statements, like you said, Elizabeth, the statements at the top, you know, the background and purpose and goals and objectives are sort of general statements. And then when you get further down is when you get the specifics of what does that mean exactly?
Yeah. I highlighted it. I think we can come back to this point. I think this is really good discussion. Let's keep going into the details and then come back and see how we feel about this after we've looked at the detailed language. I think it may be helpful for us to do that. Okay. I think this one this next comment I hit something else and then I wondered if it was missing. Okay. One of the things that we had talked about, and Cynthia, I'll credit you with really opening my eyes on this, is the need to provide the option for multi-year scholarships. That changes student behavior when they know that if they get a scholarship and they do the right thing, it's going to keep coming for to finish that through their education. But I think it's also very important to make sure they understand that it's subject to minimum performance. And there was nothing in here. There is something about minimum performance down below, but it said may be renewed on an annual basis if the student applies and remains eligible. Does that encompass in the minimum performance below? Because we've got minimum performance.
Right.
Here.
Part of what, and I think that's some of the reasons that I reference the rules in here too, because because part of the requirement for this contract is that the grantee comply with the rules.
Right.
So the rules are effectively part of this contract. And what I did here in this scholarship requirements was basically copy the requirements from the rules, in a more narrative way. But if you think something is missing, we can certainly put it in there. And there are we put some of the rules provisions say, or as specified in the grant agreement and things like that. So there is some leeway to require some additional things in certain contexts. So.
Okay. So I think what I'm starting to realize, I think we're okay then here without saying anything additional. Is that correct? Okay, let me just remove that then.
So if, it's again, if you all think that we need to be more clear about it or more specific, we absolutely can add language.
Yeah. Okay. Are we okay with all of this? Okay. So this is the place where they talk about Pell Grant, Oregon Opportunity Grant eligibility, or similar standard. And so that language allows the Ed Foundation to modify their criteria for economic need. And again, that's another way we could call that financial need instead of economically disadvantaged. That's another way we could explain it. Claire, I don't know if your university has been undergoing a lot of changes with the way they describe things, but we do use the term economically disadvantaged more recently. In the last 6 months, we've been updating a lot of things to use that phrase. Are you using a similar phrase?
As far as I know, we are. And I think, I was looking at that clause based on student need, and I want it to be clear that financial need is the type of need we're talking about. And I think economic disadvantage achieves that. So however we, word it, I want it to be clear that the purpose is to, whether or not it's students with financial need or how, which I know is passive tense, but I want it to be clear up front that that's the reason we have a scholarship in the first place. That's my vote.
And economically, yeah, Melissa?
Yeah, and actually I was gonna, because I was reading back through the agreement myself, and I was gonna suggest that we put in 3B, put financial in front of need, so it's clear.
Okay. I like that. B, student financial need. Okay, great. All right, so I guess I just sort of wanted everybody to see this piece of it before we decided on the goals and objectives. Given that we have, whoa, that wasn't where I meant to go. There we are. Given that we have this, how do you feel about the economically disadvantaged? Oh, I think we have a missing period there. I feel like it's broad enough. I mean, from the way we talk about things in an education setting, I think that's fairly broad.
I also thought about if it's, and this doesn't accomplish the goal, but if folks are concerned, I mean, we're very clear in the goals and objectives that students have to meet and in the scholarship requirements, they have to meet the eligibility in terms of both performance and need. But I also thought about funding and support to deserving students or another type of qualifier that, if folks are concerned that economically disadvantages, I'm fine with it. I think it's good, but if folks are concerned that it's too narrow, that's another way that we could describe students. And then in the scholarship requirements, deserving students include those who have financial need.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Scott?
I just thought of something, and this is going to swing it perhaps a slightly sideways difference. If I'm not mistaken, the governor's office basically said they wanted something that was going to diversify.
You're absolutely correct.
The pipeline, and economically disadvantaged is a level of diversity, but it's not the only level of diversity I suspect the governor's office is looking for.
No, I think we're well aware of the governor's office's preferences. You are absolutely correct, but that it becomes problematic to utilize those criteria. And so economically disadvantaged is an aspect of diversity. It is correlated with many other aspects of diversity as well. And so, maybe financial need is just the easiest way to say this. Okay, not hearing suggestions. This, I think, is a open item here. All right, I'm going to keep moving because I think there are some big pieces that I want us to get through. I literally just could not find this in my files. Did we decide on 2.5 or 2.8?
My recollection is 2.5.
It is. Okay. That's all I just could not recall. That gives us a ton of flexibility.
Elizabeth, I was just looking at one of our federal programs, which is called TRIO, and we're rewriting all the script. And so TRIO is one of our big federal programs, and I know what it used to say. And now it just says, let's see, provide services for individuals from disadvantaged backgrounds. TRIO includes 8 programs targeted to serve and assist low-income individuals, first-generation college students, and individuals with disabilities. That is the farthest we can go. So that's the limit.
We also have TRIO.
Yeah.
And I did not know the specific language that we are. I don't know the specific.
It looks quite different than it used to, but I'm
just certain it does.
we have to stay very general. And so this is the kind of terminology.
So the majority of students who have some sort of disabilities, by the merit of the disability, they become financially disadvantaged. Simply, it takes longer to get through school. There's more costs associated with it, whether those are visible or invisible differences. So could you tell me again the language?
I wasn't suggesting that for our language. I was just using it as a demonstration of how general, the language that we have to use. So they said individuals from disadvantaged backgrounds was the broad language. And then they said targeted to serve low income, first generation, and individuals with disabilities.
Elise?
Oh, I actually had a comment about the grade point average thing, so not about this.
Okay. I think, Cynthia, I think that's very validating that we're on the right track here.
I had a question. This is Andrew, board staff.
Yeah.
Where economically disadvantaged will be defined for students? Will that be on the foundations?
So this is a scholarship requirement. If they are Pell Grant or Oregon Opportunity Grant eligible, they are by definition economically disadvantaged.
Okay.
That's how they're operationalizing it. A similar standard, we put that in there because, so Oregon Opportunity Grants are in place in large part because of undocumented students that they're ineligible for a Pell Grant. So Oregon Opportunity Grant steps in there. It's basically the same criteria except for related to immigration status.
Okay.
And then the similar standard allows the flexibility of OSCPA Ed Foundation to, they could have students write an essay to explain why they're economically disadvantaged, but don't fit in these other categories. But these are very standard categories used by higher
Okay.
ed.
Thank you.
Sure. Melise?
And I would add to that, because this is a statement of the goals and objectives, it's not specifically a direct requirement that's directed to the grantee. I think that to describe it in a general way as an undefined term, if we were going to include it as, part of the specific requirement, then we would want to define what that meant. But I think you don't need to define it in just sort of that general statement.
Okay. I'm going to continue moving on here. Melissa, you said you had a comment about 2.5 versus 2.8.
Yes, and I just wanted so the rule says that it's at least 2.5 grade point average or a higher required average as determined by the grantee.
There we go.
So if that's something that, so here I just put at least a 2.5 grade point average. So that's the sort of the floor.
The way I would look at this and this is mostly for Dave and Chris, is I would look at this and say, gosh, we want to drive applications here the first year, get the word out that this is out there. And if there's a lower GPA in the first year, and you get an overwhelming number of applications, there's nothing to stop you from changing it the next year to 2.8. From an educator's perspective, my gut tells me 2.8 is the right number. 2.5, you're starting to, at least, because every school is a little different, but 2.5 is starting to get into some shaky territory in my mind. Chris, Claire? No? Claire?
Sorry, I have a fridge that broke and my repairman was leaving, so I was trying to coordinate 17 things at once. Yeah, and I think that because it's accounting and business courses, so because we're looking at our marketing and our management and everything else, I think that 2.5 is, I'd be concerned about academic eligibility just to maintain enrollment at school. If we're you know, I mean, I want to make sure that we're being mindful of the equity considerations around first-gen students and students for whom English isn't their home language and students who are having to work full-time while they're in school. But because we're considering not just major specific, but also business courses,
Yeah.
I think 2.5 is where I start to get worried.
Yeah. Chris?
Is there a particular minimum GPA required for licensure?
No.
No. Okay.
Nope. Pass the exam, you're golden.
Okay. I have had students in the past who hovered around 2.5 and they're excelling in
Yeah.
firm life. So I'm okay with 2.5.
Yeah. Okay. Terrific. Okay. Mary?
I was just going to say at U of O, you have to have a 3.0 to be admitted to the College of Business. But after that, you know, once you're in there, you're in.
Party time.
I know.
Okay, great. I just was a little bit confused what this was. I don't remember there being anything about, so what, is this something that, Elise? You're muted.
Yes. So you have a rule that says, where is it?
I thought we were 6 years. So that's why I was confused.
No, your rule says, so it says 6 years, but then it says in subsection 2, this is your proposed rule, that says students who need to exceed the time limitations in section 1 of this rule or to attend school for less than 6 quarter or semester hours per term may be eligible to receive a scholarship if the grantee determines that the student's need is legitimate and funds are available.
Got it. So if somebody took a break, like for medical reasons or something.
Right. So it's
Gotcha.
giving some flexibility on
I
that.
just didn't remember that. Okay.
And I'm sorry, I didn't have the rule numbers, so that's why they're just X's. So those will be filled in.
It's 801-060-0070.
Yeah.
As proposed.
Scott, are you by any chance a tax guy?
I'm just good with details.
Okay. Continuing on, what was interesting in here, I did not see anything that addressed the time period over which we would like to see the funds dispersed.
Mm-hmm.
So we had gone through and we had come up with all these different proposals that we, or scenarios that were then given to, I'm sorry, Logan's not here. That would be helpful to have somebody from the Board of Accountancy here. But I think we were all saying sooner about rather than later. And that's clearly what the board said when they didn't want an endowment. They wanted these funds expended. So I guess I'm just wondering what the thoughts were about whether we should put some time frame to say that the funds, the funds should, you know, not something that makes it says they have to be expended, but a recommendation of the timeline for expending the funds.
Elizabeth,
Yeah.
Madam Chair. So in that board discussion, I believe I remember that as well, is that their comment was sooner was better than later.
Yep.
But
Yep.
how much, I mean, did they put any framework around that?
Nope.
Best of your recollection?
Nope.
Okay.
So I guess I didn't have the anything particular in mind here, other than I think we need to circle back with the board and understand a little bit more what their intent was, and then get some language in here.
I would agree. I think that's a decision made higher than our pay grade.
I felt like it was too.
And I can certainly put in, you know, a row that talks about, funds have to be dispersed by the, this time or these dates, and leave those blank. So,
Yeah, yeah. I just think we need something in there.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is, I don't know what's happening, Mary, at U of O, but your enrollments in your MAC, what are they doing? Have you had a lot of students say sorry, or is that going to be another year before we see the effects of the 120 pathway for certification? So then that means that there's students who are less we don't have that 5th year cohort in there in the same way, potentially. So there's a lot of unknowns floating around here.
Actually, we have a very large MAC group. We have almost 45 going through.
Wow.
And surprisingly enough, we had some wanting to do the MAC, and they turned down full-time offers because they wanted to have only 1 year before they get of work experience before they get licensed. So it's not, nobody expected that.
Right.
That does not bode well for their employers.
Yeah. So, we'll see, because I know when I was in practice, and Scott, you might speak to this, is that we always said you had to work 2 years, regardless of if you have a MAC or not. But we don't see that slowing down at all. Because
so Dave,
yeah.
Dave may not want to.
Enrollment is up significantly. I saw those numbers, it was like 380, and we're well over 400. So.
Okay. Yeah, so we just need we just don't know. So there needs to be something in there. I think that was that Mila? No. Anything else on this table? I mean, we need to, the numbers are all in there. Are all known. There's nothing else. Maximum amount. We've talked about that. I just assume, Elise, that you didn't go back and double check the numbers yet. They were 3 and 5.
Right, for the scholarships.
Yes.
Yeah, and
that was what all this is.
Yeah. Well, no, these are the totals, I think. So what's in this right column is really, so you're going to give $1 million. How much of that has to be used for scholarships versus administrative costs? That's what this is contemplating.
Gotcha. Okay, I don't believe we have received any estimates from the foundation about their administrative costs. I'm not aware of any.
Madam Chair,
Scott?
yeah,
Yes.
I think it would be inappropriate to put a number in there without some level of communication as to how much the foundation believes the administration fees could be. It just seems hard to impose a number without having any basis for that judgment.
Right, I agree. So it is 404, so it's possible that Sherry will make it in here. I'm not sure how far she has to go. I'm just going to say, Martin, to follow up with Sherry for an estimate of administrative costs, and then I guess that gets reviewed by us as being whether it's adequate or not. I know she had talked about the potential need to hire somebody additional to manage this program. I don't have a good enough sense of what incrementally this involves versus the scholarship program that's already there. We know that the software, we've confirmed that the software can accommodate 2 different scholarship criteria, so it should not require additional software. And we had talked about the need for a different process, a more efficient process for awarding these scholarships as well, but that's done by volunteers. So I don't yet have a good understanding of why there would need to be a whole additional person. So I think that's a reasonable question to ask. I don't know, Chris and Dave, have either of you gotten into the weeds of that with Sherry?
All I know is it's just been referred to as the word small fee. I don't know what that means from a staff standpoint.
Okay, okay. I don't know, Melise, what is customary for something like this? Do you have a sense of that?
I don't off the top of my head. I could certainly ask around, within
Okay.
our section and see, if you'd like me to, as
Okay,
far as a percentage or something.
okay. Claire?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm the treasurer of a national foundation that gives scholarships as part of our funding priorities. And we typically, depending on the source of the funds, our administrative fees are usually between like 1.5% and 2.5% that we charge for funds when we issue scholarships from endowments. But I don't know what would be customary in a situation like this, but that's typically what we charge.
Okay, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because if it's that, that's a pretty small dollar amount. If it just say 2%, I mean, that's $20,000. That's not a lot.
I think our foundation charges 2% also to the
Yeah.
college.
Yeah.
Andrew, board staff, does this address any unallocated scholarship funds?
Do you want me to answer that, Elizabeth?
Hey, yes, please. I guess
Um,
I just unallocated scholarship funds. You mean, because there's not a certain amount per year, so they would just continue to sit in,
Okay.
investments. But yeah, Melise?
Yes, there is, but I think that's true during the period of the grant agreement. So what the agreement says is, it doesn't have an expiration date in it right now, but you can put
Right.
one, whatever you decide on. During that period, obviously everything in the agreement applies. But the agreement says when the agreement expires, if there are any unused funds, they must be returned. So that's how this agreement addresses that.
Okay.
We want to be certain there's a long enough time period so that doesn't kick in.
Cool. I've missed a meeting, so I was just catch up, and thank you for answering that.
Great. Okay. All right. So continuing on. This is a piece that I had flagged that I think I really would like the committee to deeply engage in thinking about this. There's going to be an expectation that the Board of Accountancy reports back to the governor's office some metrics on the effectiveness of this scholarship program. And it seems from the way this document is written that there's two pieces here. So I guess my first part is for Melise and then for the committee. So there's the scholarship recipient information. So at the recipient level, a great deal of information. And then there's this program update. And it seems like, I guess I'm struggling with what information does the board need at the individual level? Again, always being mindful of individual data moving around and data security issues versus at an aggregate level. So I guess I'm trying to understand what we need at individual and what we need in aggregate, because we do need to know information about how many scholarships. We need to know something in aggregate about them to demonstrate that we've met our goals. How many students got scholarships? What's financial need? Are they completing school? There's some kind of a tracking that has to happen here. But I'm still struggling with why the board might need this individual information. We're not doing any tracking anymore.
And if the question is to me, that's why I put this comment. You didn't include in the rule specifically the name, county, email, and phone number. That's why you don't have to require that.
Okay.
And so that's why I asked, is that something you want to require? You do have rules that say certain things have to be, certain information has to be collected and reported. I think what the idea was, and this is, again, this is because I didn't have specific direction on this, so I took a guess. So what I was thinking is, right, this is the scholarship recipient information, or actually I think I would change that to awardee, because it's confusing with use of recipient otherwise in the agreement. But so this would be, right, sort of the information that you want with regard to the actual scholarships that are awarded. You also wanted information about the pool of applicants, and that's part of what's in the rule. Because your rule requires a bunch of information, and then it says, in addition, grantees must collect and provide demographic information for the pool of applicants and for all scholarship recipients. So that's part of what I think this was trying to get at too. And then I also thought, it makes sense for you to maybe get sort of updates. Obviously, you're going to want specific information about the scholarships that are awarded, but you might want to get additional information updates, right? Periodically. How much have you awarded so far? How much, that sort of thing. So that was the second sort of the update report.
Okay. Scott, and let me take just a moment and then I'll go to you, Scott. I just would like to recognize that we have a guest who's joined us, Sherry. Sherry, I'm not sure if your sound is working. It sounds like your connection is a little wonky.
Okay, whoops. Oh, darn.
Wait, I think you're there. You want to give introduce yourself?
There we go. Sorry, my phone fell. I apologize.
Sherry, can you just introduce yourself for the record?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize. Sherry McPherson, OSCPA.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay, back to you, Scott.
Okay, question. I guess we got subsection little a and little b here that we're dealing with. And I guess maybe I got lost in the conversation. Is one of them modeled on the rule, A or B?
I think B is, right?
Okay. B is the one that's modeled on the rule. So would we basically say, being A is, this is what the recipient, i.e. the foundation, should be getting from the grantees in order to provide the information that we're requesting in B?
Yeah, because I don't think we want that information. So I guess there's two ways to approach it. I thought it was I want to make sure it's very clear, because now I'm reading this differently than I read it the first time, because it said they will recipient. Okay, wait a minute. Maybe I just don't.
The grantee, the foundation is the recipient.
Right. So
Right.
A is saying that the foundation will gather this information and give all of it to us. And then in B, it says, okay, here's the things that you need to report it on. Should A instead say the recipient will gather this in their files from the grant recipient, and then B is where we've defined exactly what it is we at the BOA want to get.
Yeah, actually, but the only correction is, Scott, you said grant recipient. It's what they should gather about
The
the
scholarship
awardee.
recipient.
The awardees, I guess, is
Yeah.
the legal phrase we're
Yeah.
using here. Yeah, I think that may be where the confusion comes in. I don't, Martin could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't get the feeling that the Board of Accountancy wants to get name level information. The
No.
Board of Account.
I was looking at, sorry for interrupting,
Yeah,
Andrew,
go right
board
ahead,
staff.
Andrew.
I was looking at Washington's contract, and they have it kind of broken down into just three simple things. accounting of receipts, disbursements of the awards, scholarship recipient, their college, scholarship amount, and then any other outcomes that the board needs to assess the impact.
Yeah, and I think we were trying to put more, I think that's absolutely correct. And we were trying to put more specificity around the additional information. Because again, we're trying to tie this back to, has this met the goals of the governor's office? So that includes things like demographic information. So I guess the way I would look at it is I'd be inclined to simply, and Sherry, this is a great place for you to weigh in. If we gave you what we want in the report, we let you figure out how to collect that data rather than telling the grant recipient what data to collect. Sherry, were you able to see? I know you're on your phone. Were you able to see what we're looking at here? Oh, I wonder if we lost her.
There we go. Instead of, I've just pulled over. Instead of trying to get to the Board of Accountancy office, then I'm just going to take it from the car here. So sorry. So, okay, Elizabeth, I apologize. Would you repeat that, please?
So so I don't know. Do you have the document in front of you? We're on page 16.
I do. Yep.
Fabulous. Okay. Page 15. I think we've just sorted out what this is. Page 15. There's been, so 5A specifies information that the foundation would need to collect about their scholarship awardees. And then Part B specifies what the foundation needs to submit back to the Board of Accountancy about the previous year's awards. And my question is, if we simply include Part B in the contract, is that sufficient? And then you guys, the foundation staff, figures out what data to collect in order to meet the reporting requirements of the contract?
I think it would be nicer to have it not detailed out. That way it can be more nimble. And then we can work off of what is needed to meet the needs of the legislature and the board.
Okay, so then I think the thing that I'm going to ask our board members to do is to focus on Part B and see whether this provides the type that these items 1 through 11 are all necessary and whether they are sufficient to provide informative reporting back to the state. Melise?
I think if that's what the goal is, then I think what I suggest is that I revise this somewhat and sort of because there's some stuff in, I think, that's required in the reporting that's required in the rules. There's some of that in A, but I think to be put in B. So I think we need to sort of take a few things from A and put them in B, and then you could just consider B.
That would be great. And Martin can handle that dissemination. Martin and his staff can handle that. I guess the only other, go ahead, Scott.
So would that mean we're eliminating A by migrating certain parts of A into B? We would eliminate A in its specificity. Is that correct, out of this contract?
Right. That's what I would do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that would be simpler. The only other thing that keeps niggling at me, and this, Scott, you got in my head on this one, is this whole idea of, at any point, is it possible to track the individuals who receive these scholarship awards to see if they ultimately take the CPA exam and become licensed? And there's a huge time lag with this. And we've recognized all along that we are funding, when we say the profession, it is pretty broad, although Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys as CPAs are having a hard time because your clients aren't adequately staffed. Yeah. So, so we know that not everybody's going to become a CPA, but it would be amazing if there's a way to track that. So that might be the only thing, Melise, that I would put in here. I mean, I see the success stories, but maybe there could be a number 12 that says, you know, subsequent to, you know, I mean, because this isn't going to happen for probably year 3 or 4.
So maybe information on degree status or certifications obtained for scholarship recipients, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess part of what I'm thinking here is, you know, Sherry, this is really for you, and thinking about what you guys would need to collect is, as educators, we always focus on graduation rates, what percentage of our students graduate, and those numbers can be quite low. It varies tremendously from university to university and program to program. And there's a great deal of focus on that in higher education. And it seems that it would be reasonable to say, well, what percentage of these students finish? What percentage of these students, you know, finish their degree? What percentage of these students finish and get a CPA?
Well, and I know this, Sherry, I know that, you know, I mean, Elizabeth, you're aware too, you know, even for the foundation side, sometimes it's a little hard to be tracking people down, but
it's very hard.
We need to make that effort at it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you can go into CPA Verify 10 years from now and see, right? I mean, like there's ways, but I mean, I don't want it to be ridiculous, but I guess I mostly just wanted us as a committee and you know, and the guests here to be thinking about that is ultimately at the end of the day, we want this money to get in student hands, but we want to be good fiduciaries of this money for the state.
Agreed.
And the way we demonstrate that is through the outcomes associated with the program. So that's really the goal of this whole section.
So what we'd be looking for is post-graduation continuation feedback from the recipients of the grants.
Very well put, Scott.
And that's probably going to be fairly difficult because they no longer need to report back. They've got the money and they're on their way. But yes, it would be great if we could get that information.
I mean, a really small thing that can be done with this is you ask the students for their most permanent email and their LinkedIn. That's how grad programs track their students one by one.
Who's going to track it?
I mean, the Board of the foundation could at some point do some tracking. I mean, I literally was just talking to a faculty member from Washington State, and they do this. They do a random sample of their, across campus, they do a random sample of their PhD graduates and track them through LinkedIn to see where they land. There's lots of ways you can do it. And again, I'm not trying to be crazy about the burden, but you have to think about these things on the front end or you're not gathering the right information. And then it's too late. Okay, lead balloon. Melissa, I think I like your suggestion of taking a crack at combining this, and then we'll have to coordinate with Martin. I mean, we have other meetings on this, but I just really wanted to get the discussion going and getting everybody thinking about, and I think this is Sherry. Oh, good, you're still there. That Sherry, really thinking about what are reasonable capabilities.
Yes. There we go.
There you are. Hello.
Sorry, I got the iPad in the car, so want to be on screen. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I know, and some of this, you know, we're paving some new ground here, but I certainly understand. And I mean, the legislature certainly had questions, you know, from committee. So we want to be able to be responding appropriately.
Yeah. Dave?
So I was just going to ask, the language currently says which must include the following in B. And so I'm just wondering, you know, considering the challenge and tracking some of this, if you can put in some sort of best efforts language.
May.
I think certainly the committee could decide that for some of this information.
Sure.
Some of it is required under the rule, though.
Okay.
Understood.
Yeah.
All right. Other thoughts that folks have. We are here till 5 o'clock. So I'm just kidding. We're scheduled till 5 if necessary, but I feel like we've been fairly productive. Sherry, since we've got you, there are a few places that we had some questions.
Okay.
For you specifically. Oh, I asked, what is this REALD?
Actually, that was on my question list also.
It's I believe it's a set of data, but it doesn't have to be in there. It was in a different grant with respect to gathering demographic information in a scholarship program, but we can take that out. I was going to suggest we take it out anyway because you're specifying anyway, so I don't think it has to be there.
Yeah, okay. All right, so just working our way back, Sherry, on page 14, we did not know what you had in mind in terms of the cost to administer this.
Yes.
So you don't need to give us an answer right now, but I've left this as a follow-up for Martin.
Okay. And you know what? I had something related to in the contract, excuse me. There we go. Just trying to stay on camera. I had something in here as well, because I did talk to Martin about, if there was possibility of some administrative. Now, with that, I wasn't thinking about paying OSCPA staff, right? I mean, the society is very good about providing the time of OSCPA staff to the Ed Foundation, which is a separate entity. And, because we always look at it, we want to make sure scholarship money is going to scholarship, right? Where I was coming from on the admin piece was, if we did need to get some assistance, say we had to have a temp come in for, 2 weeks worth of support to us while we're trying to get ready for the scholarship meeting and pulling data and, setting up that sort of thing. That was the intention there.
I see. Okay. I remembered one person and I said, I have no idea what one person would do year round. That makes sense. What you just said.
No.
Okay.
It's more, I mean, as you know, like Tana is the primary, but there's going to be points where, she may need a little bit of administrative support, exterior, like through a temp agency, etc.
Perfect. Okay. That's great. Okay. We had a few things. Also, and certainly if you had questions on things,
Okay.
as you went through.
And my apologies for having been late. I had an important meeting that was 2 important meetings at the exact same time. So, okay, I'm going to get back here. Go ahead.
On page 6, we had talked about insurance here.
Yes.
Is there some kind of insurance? I was thinking the only kind of insurance that made sense to me was around cyber, of some sort of cybersecurity breach related to your system. Is there insurance that the foundation has?
Well, we also have the director and officer, et cetera. So, for me, it was a matter of, because I put little X's by all those insurances too, kind of going through. Nothing looked wildly out of scope to me. But of course, as just part of due diligence, I was like, okay, after today's meeting, go back and just do a double check on that to make sure that we're hitting the spirit of each of those.
Okay. Okay.
And I think one of them was like commercial, trying to remember. But nothing seemed weird.
Okay. Back on page 5, there's let's see, 5 was subcontractor 7.4 on page 5.
Okay.
Would you ever use subcontractors on this?
Well, that's interesting you say that. I mean, I looked at that and kind of went, subgrants and contracts, but, I was thinking about is the intention there about like our platform? Is that falling under a subcontractor from the standpoint of just throwing this out to another agency? I mean, Dave and Chris, I don't know how you guys feel about that. I'd feel a little cranky about that because again, then we're spending money externally that we could be providing for scholarships. Now, the devil's in the details, but that to me gets back not so much to a contractor, but actually back to that admin piece where, hey, we need a few weeks of admin support. I mean, that seems a lot more practical. I mean, to me, and I'm just not speaking on behalf of the society, but speaking on behalf of myself. If we
Right.
were going out to a whole subcontractor for this, then it's like sort of defeats the purpose in my mind.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
just chalk this
Gotcha.
standardized language.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Oh, background check. There, and I was just thinking about that, what we were talking about a little bit. I would see that, you know, if we think about the foundation giving, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Elizabeth.
okay, no.
Okay. I was thinking about, you know, presently foundation, it's merit-based, right? We don't really have any of that other private data as far as, you know, Pell grants, all that sort of thing. So I know we're going to need to be putting in some, I'm going to call them guardrails and, you know, or fences around some of that. I would see that we have someone coming in for administrative support to us. We're going to want to be very careful about what they see and what they don't see. I mean, I want everyone to have comfort on that.
Well, and one thing that around this that we talked about is I did not recall anything around basically non-disclosure of this information by members of the committee. I mean, I would hope that folks have that understanding that they don't say, oh, so-and-so has financial need. But that in an educational setting, that's all protected by federal privacy education FERPA. So it may be something that along with the conflict of interest, that there be some kind of a non-disclosure as well. Privacy, you know, I don't know why NDA sounds so nefarious, but you know what I'm talking about.
I do. And you know what, that was on my mind too, because, you know, I mean, obviously we're straight off of a different board and in a committee where we have that confidentiality agreement, right?
Right.
So
Yeah,
I
there you go.
just have to be careful about that. I wouldn't want that information out there either.
Yeah. Okay. Then I've left a note about that in here. Sorry, my brain couldn't get around confidentiality. It feels like it's already been a very long week. Okay, this is one I think that's a quick question. There was discussion, the contract was set up such that there was language in there around disbursement of funds. I see an advantage, I think all of us see an advantage with dispersing the funds as a lump sum to the OSCPA Foundation, since there is a mechanism, an investment mechanism already in place. However, the question arises, can you absorb the full million in one big lump? Is there a reason that you would want it in lumps, that it just is, it causes issues if it's done in a lump sum?
Okay, yeah, that I'll have to ask, you know, our financial advisor, whether it would be in one piece or in segments.
Okay.
So, thank you. Yeah, I'm not used to that question. It'd be nice if $1 million came our way more often. So, thank you.
Makes me think, yeah, it makes me think about these schools that have gotten these huge donations from Mackenzie Scott, the ex-wife of Jeff Bezos. Yeah. I of course, I'm an accountant. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, do they even like have capacity to deal with these investments?
You do that.
Good problem to have.
Yep, I'm not complaining. I'm happy to check on this. So.
Okay, we got that. Anything else that Sherry or anyone else wants to raise? I see Scott's hand up, but Sherry, is there anything else before we scooch over to Scott?
Why don't you scooch over to Scott? I'm going to turn my pages where I marked notes up just to make sure that we covered everything.
All yours, Scott.
Madam Chair. So earlier in the conversation, when we were in Exhibit A and we had the item 5B category of things to report, I believe it was David made the comment is there might be information that's hard to track fully and get back to the board, which is a valid question. However, if those track directly with the proposed OAR, do we need to get some feedback as to whether the OAR is too prescriptive of what must be reported? Are we all setting ourselves up for failure by the items in 5B?
Sherry, I believe you reviewed the OAR before it was submitted and said that you could meet all those reporting requirements, correct?
I remember that back then. I sure would like to look at that all over again. But
sounds great.
Because I mean, if there are issues, we need to get ahead of that when it comes to the public hearing
Yes.
for the OAR when it hits the public hearing, and be prepared to modify it as seemingly appropriate, and then the contract would follow accordingly.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, you and I have been through
I like that.
enough. I was thinking through that too and going, oh, note to self, double check on that. And I had another piece on here too. So thank you for that.
That was it for me. I have one item about, but after we leave the contract.
Okay. So under the scholarships for 4, it had those yellow dollar amounts and everything. Are those, did we talk about those today, or are those still like open items? You know, we've talked about how much to, to community college, how much to university. We talked about overtime, total, maximum totals, those types of things. So just checking here to see if anything in this area that was yellow, if any of that changed today in conversation.
We realized that we did not have a firm understanding from the board from the Board of Accountancy's board as to the time frame for disbursement. I mean, they said sooner is better than later. Well, I think we need some language in here about recommended number of years to disperse these funds.
That would help. For example, it's the intention for this to be over a 5-year period, and then it's spent for 7 years. Okay. All right.
Correct.
Yeah. And that would also be based on, like yearly, how, what amount of fund is, distributed outwardly too, but within the scope of that total number of years.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing that crossed my mind too is if we're too prescriptive on the number of years, but let's just say we got to the last year and as we know, we've awarded scholarships on the OSCPA side, merit-based side, where then someone decides something happens that they don't meet the criteria any longer. So then we have funds that might be left over that need to be dispersed the next year. So I want to make sure that there's a component for that in here as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Melise, did you get that?
Or it comes back to the board for, rather see it move out through a scholarship process.
I'm sorry, I might have missed that last piece.
I can understand that. So, okay, Melissa, so let's just say, I'm just going to have all this be very hypothetical. The scope, the period of this the goal would be for 5 years. We award everything that was intended for year 1, year 2, 3, 4. We get to year 5. We're intending to award everything that we planned, but you have a student that says, oh, you know what? I graduated early, or I'm moving away, or I'm not going to become a CPA, what have you, or other things. Where all of a sudden the amount that was awarded to them is not used that year. So what would happen if this were a 5-year agreement? There's funds left there that were awarded, but then not utilized. Is there a year 6 option, or what would happen?
Well, the way the agreement is set up right now, and again, I think you weren't here earlier when I sort of carefully describe my role here, which is to advise the committee and not the foundation or OSCPA. So obviously you all have to, take a look at these things, but the way it's set up is that there's what we've termed the performance period, which is, it has a grant funding start date and an expiration date.
Yep.
So you can define the period that the agreement will be in effect. And then there are provisions in here that say if at the end of the grant term, the contract term, there are funds left over, those must be returned to the board.
Okay. That's what I kind of assumed. I don't know how I missed that, but thank you. Okay, that makes sense.
So the intent probably, Melise, is to make that time period you know, optimally, I would say can envision some language. It is optimally to be dispersed over a 5-year period, but not to exceed a period of 7 years.
That would be nice.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And
Because-
then you will need to make the period of the grant 7 years. Because once the grant contract expires, then there are no more requirements.
Okay, that makes sense. So that's something that we'll have to know. I mean, when we know what the goal is of the board right now, you know, we'll just have to make sure we're having that conversation so that we do things properly. Okay. I would hate to say 5 and then, you know, all of us, you know what I mean? I like the idea of adding a few extra years, but pulling back on the activity. I mean, backing up for the activity, that it wouldn't go that long. It is nice that it would give us some buffer though, if something happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And I made a note about that. I put that language in a note, Melise, just as a reminder for you. Okay, anything else? That is all I had, but what about the others on the call? Sherry, Scott, I can't remember now. Scott, did we get your last comment?
Well, it has nothing to do with the contract itself. It has to do with the agenda.
Okay.
So is this do you want to, I'm not, we're still having contract conversation. I won't bring it up at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I did have one thing, Elizabeth. I attached these, you know, these sample reports.
Right.
You know, if we're gonna revise the reporting thing, you know, we might just discard these. They don't.
Yeah. I wasn't planning on going over them in light of the fact that you were gonna take another pass at this.
Okay. But then I did also include this letter of intent
Mm-hmm.
that I think seems like a good idea because it's supposed to be, you know, somebody who's intending to get licensed, right?
Yep.
I was going to take off the bottom part, the institution contact, because I don't think you need that. But is this something you do want to provide as kind of a form template? Or do you know, obviously the foundation could, you know, figure out something itself too.
What would happen if it said sample?
Yeah, it is just a sample. It says sample template.
I like that because when somebody signs something, it does escalate their commitment. That's what psychologists tell us.
Okay. Well, and Dave and Chris, just thinking about this, I had no objection to this because I thought that well, I mean, I'm saying the same thing you are, Elizabeth, really, but just not in as nice a way. But it's like, otherwise, how do you know that they really intend to do any of this if they're not?
Correct.
We should at least make them say, yes, they are, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I like it.
Okay.
Okay. And Chris and Dave, I haven't said anything that you're itching about that I'm out of step with you, right? Okay, good. Okay. Important. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? This is kind of final call, and then we can move on in our agenda. We do have one other short item, and I'm guessing Scott has something he wants to add there.
Well, again, it's not with the contract, it's on the agenda. So you're
Right.
moving to the agenda now. I'll hold off for right now.
I'm sorry, it's not on the contract? Do you have something else on the contract?
No,
or
I
later
have,
in the
it's not
agenda?
on the contract. It's
Gotcha.
regarding the agenda. If you're moving to the agenda, I'll hold off now.
So we, I think, are done with working on the contract. So I guess our next item then is item 4C. That we're just reminding everybody that we have a meeting on Monday, August 25th. We had some difficulty getting the time to work on that. Unfortunately, Martin's not here, so I don't have the details. Claire, you are teaching, right?
Yeah, I have a class that starts at 12:30 Pacific. We start class that week, actually that day. It's my first day of class.
Oof.
Mm-hmm.
And that day wasn't on the poll. I'm traveling that day. I can't attend at all.
Okay, I'm going to ask Martin to have his staff take another look at these possible dates. I could meet earlier, but now I'm hearing that Scott can't meet. So, we will see what we can do. I think we just need to revisit those times and dates. We'll keep it on the calendar for what it is right now. But we'll have to look at that again. It's only a couple of weeks off, so hopefully we can still find a time. We've got tight time here. I'll coordinate with Martin over the next couple of days to come up with our next steps, because I think we were trying to get this scheduled out, but that's always tricky. So please, I guess, just ask that everybody pay close attention to their email and respond quickly if you get a request. Scott.
Madam Chair, sorry, kind of Robert's Rules of Orders. One of the items in the agenda that we adopted was 4A, which is the legislative update for Martin. Do we need to address the fact that Martin's not here, so that's not going to happen?
Yes, that is not going to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. All right, the announcements would have also been, and Martin, but I do not have anything else for us for today. Hearing no objections, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to adjourn.
I don't think we need a second, do we, on adjournment?
We don't-
That's what I thought.
I
All
don't,
right.
I don't know that we need a motion, but it's there.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
thank you. I certainly appreciate it.
And everyone, thank you for your grace. I was really having a hard time being in two really urgent places at the same time. Thank you.
We got it. So it is now 4:47 and the meeting is adjourned.